Bandwidth for First Updates Now is supported by AndyMark. Are you competition ready? Go to andymark.com and keep your team inspired. And by the Blue Alliance. Keep up to date on all live and archived First Robotics events and team stats at thebluealliance.com. First Updates Now is brought to you by viewers like you. Fun relies on the generous support of our fans in order to continue to keep creating content. Please consider donating, giving bits, or subscribing. Subscribe for a few bucks a month or for free through Twitch Prime. And don't forget that our subscribers get 5x chance to win on all giveaways. There we go, audio on. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to First Updates Now. We got a really cool, fun special tonight. What does it take to be an FRC referee? And I have a fantastic individual that I've known for, man, over a decade, way over, almost 2 decades, man, Frank. This is Frank Kuziak. If you don't know about Frank, Frank is one of the greatest people in First. And maybe that's a common name because I know a couple Franks in First, and they're both pretty dope, man. Yeah. So I want to introduce Frank and then have him talk a little bit about himself too. But Frank's been a referee since 2003, a head ref since 2004, a senior head ref, and I'd like to know what that actually means because I don't think I've heard of that term, since 2011. He works at the Lawrence Hall of Science at UC Berkeley. And man, you just got back from China as a referee as well. Like literally, you just flew in yesterday, didn't you?
Yep, landed yesterday morning. I took off yesterday afternoon from Hong Kong, and I landed before I took off.
So this guy's a trooper, man. Like he's coming in straight off that and just going in. And Frank, you and I were talking offline. We're going to take some of your questions that you post on Cheat Delphi, and if you have questions you want to post in chat for Frank as well, go ahead and tag at First Updates Now. Keep in mind the question we're going to be asking is about like how to become a referee, tips Frank might have for you as well too. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're not going to be talking about specific rulings or anything like that because it's too much to go into. We don't want to quite cover those things for both Frank's sake and for our sake of going too down deep the rabbit hole in a show as well, right, Frank?
Oh yeah, and I'm jet lagged, so this will be a fun conversation.
Absolutely. Somebody said no spoiling. They must not have seen the event yet. So hey man, before we get into questions, like I just want to talk to you about you and I. So we were just talking ahead of time on stream about how long we knew each other, and apparently I don't even remember the first time we met. Apparently, so can you talk a little bit about that? Because you talk about how you got started as a referee, and let's kind of jump into how we first met.
Well, yeah. So in 2002 I got a job at the St. Louis Science Center, and at the time I was the gallery lead for the it's called Cyberville. It was the Science Center's computer science and technology gallery, and so a couple months into my job, they were like, "Hey, Frank, you used to play sports, right?" I go, "Oh yeah, I played high school basketball, and and they're like, did you ever referee?" I go, "Yeah, I actually refereed volleyball, when I was in middle school and high school."
Well, it's just like,
like, "Oh yeah." And they were like, "Well, would you like to referee robots?" And I was like, "Yes." I was like, "Heck yeah, I would love to referee robots." And so they told me about First, and actually my first experience with First was actually a FLL event that they had at the St. Louis Science Center, and I was kind of like a peripheral figure, and refereeing FFL is one thing. And it's been a long time since I have refereed FLL, but I had fun, and they're asking me to be a referee in 2003, and so I was a regular ref for that year, and had a blast. The head ref wasn't going to return the next year, and so they're like, "Do you want to be the head ref next year, Frank?" I'm like, "You bet." And so that was 2004, and I forget I forget the game. And one of the things,
First Frenzy was the name.
First Frenzy, that's the thing where they had open, and that's where I first remember you, because you were a driver.
Yeah,
you were on the drive team, and then we met 2 years later in Chicago when I was a head ref for the Chicago regional that year, and you're more involved as an alumni then.
Yeah, so I was just starting out emceeing back then because I was training under Dan Green
Yeah,
at the Midwest Regional, and I remember that you and I like we connected pretty well because neither one of us really knew anybody there, right? So
yeah, yeah,
I remember we just we caught up and we're like, hey, dude, like let's just go get dinner or something because then we went to that Greek
yeah.
restaurant. Well, do you
Yes,
remember what that was called? I
yes,
don't think
it
it's
was
open anymore, is
no,
it?
it's not there anymore.
No.
It's on the tip of my tongue, but they gave me just tons of that. The it was named after
Is it Apollon? No,
no, no,
Parthenon.
no,
Parthenon.
the Parthenon.
That's what it was.
Yes, that's
Yes.
the Parthenon.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we had so much, like by the time our
We had like a
entrees came out,
four-course meal,
we were,
didn't we?
oh, it was more than that. It just kept on throwing food at you. It was like,
I
you
think
saw,
people
you
thought
saw,
we were on a date.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah. So you, yeah, just do free. By the time our main course came by, we were like already full. I'm like, next time I come here, I need to pace myself.
Right? No kidding. Yeah. So,
But I tell you, that Chicago regional probably had some of the best food I had of any regional.
because it was during St. Patty's Day, if I remember correctly, right? So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
had all the corned beef and and we're gonna go off on some weird tangents here, guys. I'm telling you that right
yeah,
now, because Frank and I have known each other for a long time, and we don't get nearly enough time to talk as we never do with
yeah.
any of our first friends as well. So, I mean, let's go on that. So, you mentioned that you became a head ref in 2004.
Yeah.
You started repping. When did you first start doing championships? When did that start out?
That was Atlanta. I was probably in 2006 or 2007.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it might have been 2006.
I think so because I think actually you and I might have grabbed a hotel or
Yeah,
more like I crashed at your hotel. I think was
yeah,
probably
yeah,
more the case because you were
yeah,
working at the St. Louis Science Center at the time,
yeah,
right? And they kind of hooked you up for that stuff.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I had to pay my own way, but
Oh, you did.
but they let me, I didn't have to take days off.
Oh, so apparently you just let me crash for free most of the time. That was
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
of you. So, well, thank you. 10 years later, I appreciate that. And now we're actually Frank and I are going to be rooming together for Houston now. So
yeah,
it
exactly,
comes full circle, man. So
exactly.
okay,
And then,
go ahead. Yeah.
oh, and then in 2009, I got the job here at in 2009, I got the job here at Berkeley
Yeah.
at the Lawrence Hall of Science. And then the funny thing is, I kept on going back to St. Louis to be the head referee. Um, and so from 2009 to 2015, I think it was 16. I think 2015 was my last year as a head referee for St. Louis regional because I've been the St. Louis head ref since 2004. So I was head ref there for over 11
Wow.
years. Um, and but yeah, so yeah, I got married, and my wife was like, "You need to stop traveling." When you
Blame it
do
on
that.
the wife, huh?
Yeah, it's like you need to stop traveling and start, volunteering locally. And I was like, and that same year it was last year. So it was the year before last. So 2017 was the first San Francisco regional,
Yes.
and I was like, great, I'll be the head ref for the San Francisco regional, um, and which funny enough is only 2 blocks from my house.
Oh, nice.
So
That's
yeah,
convenient.
but actually, Melissa Smith is the head ref for San Francisco, and she's a fantastic head referee. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, no, that's fine. I don't have to be the head ref. And ironically, Min Zhang, who's the director of the First China,
Yep.
First China, got a hold of me and was like, hey, do you want to be the head referee for the first ever official first regional in China in Shenzhen? I was like, yes, but let me ask my wife.
And obviously she said yes.
Yeah, she says, and actually we made a bit of a trip out of it. We went to Hong Kong for the week before, and she had been to Hong Kong. She studied a semester there, so she was very familiar with Hong Kong. And oh yeah, it was that was the Shanghai regional there,
Yes.
and so we made a little vacation of it, and then I went up to Shenzhen to referee there, which was fantastic. And then they invited me back again this year, and I just returned from being the head rep for the Shenzhen and the Shanghai regional, which was just absolutely amazing.
So I want to get into that in just a little bit. I do want to ask you, and we'll take a couple of questions as we go through and kind of interweave these in. You have mentioned in your bio that you are a senior head referee. Like, I mean,
Yes.
what does that mean? You get promoted or something? Like, it's like getting promoted for no pay, right? Like,
Yeah,
what does that mean?
It basically means that you've been a head referee for a long enough time where you can start training other head referees.
Okay.
Um, so, um, so yeah, this is back in 2011, and Aiden comes up to me and goes, "Hey, we're kind of starting this new thing where, we want to make sure we train our referees, but I didn't want to distribute the responsibilities out a bit more just because it's just a lot for him. He couldn't do everything. He can't write the test and he can't do everything, and um, so he invited me. There's four other people who are senior head refs, and basically what we do is we get the game about a month early. I think I don't know if I can say that, but because we find because we do sign NDAs, but it's basically we have to form a strategy for that year and how we're going to train the referees, the head refs.
I'm going to hit you up in late November, early December next year or this year. So that's
yeah, no NDA. I don't want to ruin this because I have so much fun.
The powers that be in Manchester, I know.
I don't want to upset them. But I mean, and the funny thing is, I learned about the game and I helped other senior head refs write the test, and we did. I said we do our best to not only train them about that year's game, but also include modules about what you need to be, what you need to do to be a head ref in first.
And that makes a lot of sense. So we have there are a couple of people on Fun that are part of the Rules Review Committee, and we've had some of those on our shows before too. And that's kind of like that thing as well. They give feedback and they figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's we don't have much say in what the rules are, but we do help them. Like if they need some advice about, okay, here's the rule. What kind? How would y'all call this? And how and so we do help just a little bit with wording, just so that it's more approachable, I think, and we can offer other head referees a consistent interpretation of the rule.
That makes sense. So I want to jump into a couple questions that we have from our audience. And if you're doing live Q&A, make sure you tag at First Updates Now so that pings me. And we'll get you your live Q&As a little bit too. I'm going to kind of weave these in. So one of them, this kind of goes back, Frank, to you were talking about your experience between becoming a referee, a head referee, and a championship referee, right? So is there a guide typically, like how many? So we had Mark from 4557 Full Metal Falcons asking how much experience does it take to become a head referee, or he calls it a lead zebra, and then how about a championship zebra as well? So kind of what does that progression look like?
Well, now there are standards that first have for head referees, and I don't want to be quoted on these standards because
no, of course not. Nope.
But they do have standards, but it does require that you be a referee for a couple of years now. And I don't know if it's 2, 3, or I don't think it's 4, but you have to be in first a couple of years before you can apply to be a head referee. There has to be availability because if all the head ref positions are occupied currently, and people said like me who have been a head ref for a long time, and I'm still kind of young, I think. And I think I'll be head reffing for a long time. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So
Frank is one of the more energetic referees, by the way. I just want to say he also likes the microphone a lot. So if you're on his field, can we talk about that?
Well, I know. So I think Blair has put the kibosh on me, which I'm 100% fine with now. At first I was like, hey, what? They're trying to silence me. Because I like to connect with the audience. I like to connect with the students. I like to connect with the audience. I want to make sure the audience understands what's going on, because I want to make sure they enjoy it. But yeah, I used back in the early days, I used to get a little bit too much on the microphone and talk a bit too much.
You made good buddies with the FTA when he's like, "Come on, we got to go next match."
Yeah,
let's go,
exactly.
Right? So
exactly. So, but. and now now I just do it every once in a while. Just if it's pivotal.
Sure, that makes sense. And I think it's appreciated that you explain that too, right? So
yeah,
absolutely. All right, a couple other questions I want to get into. We had I'm going to jump in a little bit around here. So let's talk about each year as a referee, your preparation and what you do for a referee, right? So you mentioned that you're essentially kind of on that head ref committee as well. But like as you get ready for events, what do you like? Do you memorize all the rules? I know you talked about there's a ref test you have to take, right?
Yeah.
But then so the last event I was at, which was Central Illinois Regional, the head referee Ben there was a really cool guy. Literally,
Ben, I know
he was
Ben.
doing the whole he was doing the whole Tom Brady thing on his wrist, right, and putting like all the calls and the plays on there. So what do you do to prep for those and memorize things as well?
Okay. So. I did see before I answer that there was one question about being too young. I know you have to be an adult to be a referee, so no high school students can be referees. I think you have to be over 18. I think
somebody in chat
might
said
be over 21.
19 for a ref, 23 for a head ref.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Gotcha.
So if you're 19 and want to be a referee, you'll definitely have a lot of years under your belt before you can be a head referee, which is great. But Ben, actually, I'm pretty sure I introduced Ben to the armband thing, and that is definitely one of my preferred ways. Although the last 2 years I haven't been able to do that, just because I've been preparing to go overseas to ref. So there's a lot of other things on my mind. And if Ben's out there, I'm sorry I didn't create another armband. But if you created one, send it my way because I might want to use it for championships. Because I love my armband. But yeah, for prepping, I think so of course, in order to pass the test, you have to read the rules. I mean, it's a lot of it is reading the rules. Then we ask the question. We don't ask questions about specific rules. We try to create situations that you would have to interpret, and then answer the questions about it. And we're adding more stuff every year to our test, so that not only if you got it wrong, but if you get it right, you would know that, okay, so this question was about this rule, So if you thought it was about this other rule, no, it's not. It's about this rule. So there's that. But in preparing, there's actually several things. One, I prepare physically. It's a physical thing, and you have to prepare physically. So I honestly do try to hit the gym more. I've ever seen me on Friday, Saturday morning of a regional competition. I'm skipping around the field, and I'm getting warmed up. I stretch.
Yeah, you're a very mobile referee. We have the Shenzhen regional pack on, and I don't think you ever stand for more than like 2 seconds. Look at you crouching and everything like that. So I move around quite a bit. There's so much that goes on. I used to run to the Alliance stations a lot more than I do now. I think it depends on the game that year. This year's game is it's a pretty fast moving game, and the refs have to watch a lot. So I'm very wary of running all the way to the one side of the Alliance station. Whereas other years where the head ref can and will have the time to run to the other side and say, "Hey, don't do that. You'll get a technical foul. You'll get more likely, from years that technical fouls were really bad, or like you get a yellow card or a red card if you do X, Y, Z." I know I did run a couple of times to the Alliance station this year in the regionals, but not that much. But just being physically ready just really, really helps. The second thing I do is, I just want to remind everyone, reading the rules is always the overarching thing. All right, that's a given. You read the rules, again a month before. You read the rules again 3 weeks before. You read the rules again 2 weeks before. You read the rules again a week before. You read the rules 2 nights before. You read the rules the night before. You just got. I don't try to memorize them. I try to imagine the game and think what fouls I think would be, and this is especially true if you
head ref for a week one because you really don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Even like the week zero event usually isn't that much of an indicator of what's going to happen because they're still sussing out physical and hardware bugs that you really don't get to see the true competitive match.
I think this year, though, I mean, Power Up for a week one, I think, I don't know what your feeling is on that, but I feels like it was the most active I've seen in a long time of robots being functional.
Yeah. As far as I know, yeah, it was a relatively smooth weekend. As I said, I was getting ready for China, so
Yes.
I was only paying attention to anything that Aiden was telling us to pay attention to. And so the third thing, is week one refs are at a disadvantage of, but if you're a week two head ref or even a week two referee on, you just go to the Blue Alliance and you watch matches,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps so much. And actually, what I did this year with my referees in Shenzhen and Shanghai, since language can be an issue, I just sat them in front of my laptop and go, okay, we're gonna watch this video of this match, and I selected this match because enough things happened that I could discuss rule interpretations, and so we went through the match. I would pause and go, okay, this happened. We need to call that. Do this. This happened. And look at the referee and look at the other referee. See how they're communicating. That they're pointing to each other and saying who's entering the foul. See how they communicate. We want to emulate that. So that's really helpful. And actually, it's the first year I've done that as a practice day thing, where I pull out a match and go, let's watch this match together before we even look at a practice match today. Which I said, unfortunately, week one refs really don't have that luxury. But week two on. But just watching the game be played is a fantastic way to get ready.
Absolutely. One thing that I want to that you kind of mentioned, and this is kind of a good segue for that, is communication amongst referees. So there was a few questions that we had on making judgment calls. So you're a head ref, and you have other referees around it, and most of the time, referees are prepared for things, but there's always weird inconsistencies with every game, right? So, how do you, if a referee makes a call on something, mm-hmm. either you agree or don't agree, how does that communication process work to verify for fouls? What do you do mm-hmm. when you are talking to your referees to prep them for matches, and then when things happen in matches, how do you just have a trust level with them, or do you confirm things after each match? How does that communication process work throughout the event?
Well, it's especially during practice day, especially during the end of practice day, where you do have full matches, that you tell, okay, say we're going to call this match up as if it's a real match, and usually there's at least a good 5 or 6 matches in practice where you could actually, call it, and I'll watch them, see what they're looking at. I try to single out refs who have a wandering eye, because in most years, a referee will have a quadrant that they look at.
Sure.
And so the idea is you want to make sure that they're focused on their quadrant, and if their quadrant is empty, that they're helping out another ref in another quadrant. But to be very aware that once something enters their quadrant, they need to be right on it. So I'm looking for wandering eyes. So the nice thing about being a head referee is that I'm supposed to have a wandering eye. So I'm supposed to look at the entire game, see how the entire game is being played. Yes. So I'm looking left, I'm looking right. As you saw in the video, I move around a lot, so I can get different perspectives, so I can, look at my refs, making sure they're on point as possible. If they have a lot going on in their quadrant, I'll probably be looking at in their quadrant just to give them some extra help. But a lot of the communication is established during practice day. If there's a foul to be entered, a lot of times we just kind of whoever calls it enters it. But if you're nowhere near your panel and both 2 refs see it, then you just point to pointing to the other ref. and they're like, okay, yeah, you entered a foul, or if you wave the flag and do the foul, and then a lot of times I'll just point to myself, and then I'll enter it in.
As long as you don't throw the flag on the field, right?
Yeah, yeah. No throwing flags on fields.
Frank might have done that during one of his events in China. So.
Yeah, so it's very embarrassing. And I'm pretty sure one of your guests are from the China crew, because he said no sporting, which was a funny translation that we came across in China.
Oh.
Yeah, it was on a ticket of a place that we toured, and on the back of the ticket says no sporting. We're like, what does that mean? All right, no sporting.
Don't do that.
We're not gonna do that. Yeah, but yeah, that was super embarrassing. I was safe about it, make sure there's no robots around, and I was able to get my flag without.
Luckily, the scale kind of hides you, right? So you can.
You're trying to. Yeah, I think the camera angle might have been to my advantage.
What match? What I'm gonna look it up. What was it? Shenzhen or Shanghai?
No, it was definitely Shanghai.
Shanghai. Do you remember if it was finals?
It wasn't finals. I think it might have been either semifinals or quarter.
If somebody can find it in chat, look up the Shanghai regional and then link it for me on TV.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. I mean, and I'm still conflicted on whether I should have gotten my flag and just let it play out, but there was no robots around, so I think I made
I think you're fine. Well,
yeah.
Well, my opinion doesn't matter. I guess it's what Ada in Manchester says. But
there was some really interesting robots that fell over during the Shanghai regional. We had a robot fall on a ref panel.
Oh wow!
So we had to stop the match, and then we had two robots fall over onto a switch, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, we had a ton of fun at those regionals. So and the kids were amazing. But yeah, going back to referee communication. The radios certainly help. One of the challenges I have is that a lot of the Chinese referees they know English, but they're not fluent.
Sure.
Although at the Shenzhen regional, one of the Chinese referees, he's fluent, and he helps me with them. But a lot of the chatter over the radios is in Chinese, so I'm going, I hope they're talking about the game.
Right.
which they are. Yeah. I mean, you can totally tell from the context.
But you as a head referee, that's got to be difficult. Like, and I have a little bit of experience because I went to China for an off-season event this summer.
Yeah.
And trying to work with the other MCs and the other referees and stuff, and it's a lot of almost body language, right? Like you have to motion things and then hope you're not doing the wrong motion for things and. That's what I learned from the communication standpoint of trying to establish it. Yeah. It's just like somehow you just like everybody's in the right zone and element, and then progress gets made, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and I just remember my in Chicago in 2006, I was all about hand signals that year, and calling fouls with hand signals, and and that's not part of what head refs do now. We still have the traditional foul, technical foul, and pinning.
There's a nice video of Frank out there for referee training.
Oh yeah,
a bunch of different signals, by the way.
And apparently, I was made a meme last year because I was like, I created like a PDF file for the referee training about hand signals, and one of them has me like this doing the safe signal after a pin.
Yes, right.
And apparently, it was more like the "come at me, bro" pose. And so I got memes, so I was fine with that.
Dude, that's like you're a celebrity now. I haven't been memed yet, so that's my next phase. Luckily, some of our other hosts have, but that makes you legendary.
Yeah, but there is a lot of nonverbal communication that happens with us because there is a language barrier. Mm-hmm. And but if it was in the States, I probably wouldn't need to do that because you can just say in the radio, did you catch that foul? Did you, you communicate a lot faster with words than with hand signals. So
I want to move on because we do have a few more questions, and we got 15 minutes left on here. A couple questions revolving around when you look at from a team going to a referee, so like what is
Hmm.
two things? What can you give for tips in regards to when you're supposed? Well, first of all, you're supposed to send one student team representative, right?
Yes.
Um,
Or the alliance captain
yes.
if it's during eliminations.
So but which is supposed to be a student alliance captain though, right?
Yeah,
Not an
yeah, yeah.
adult. So I want to get your opinion on that. Like, what do you during those interactions that you have with students? What do you recommend, or the interactions with teams? And then just in general as a referee, like, what do you want people to know about the referee role and kind of like? I
Yeah,
mean, you guys are volunteers, right? Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it's hard to remember that sometimes.
Well, so one of the things that we want to get across in our training for head refs is that we're mentors, and a lot of what we do is take advantage of mentoring opportunities. So we're there to help students.
Sure.
Um, so if you approach us that way, like saying, "Oh, okay, this guy, this girl, this woman's here to help us," um, then that's how you should put it. That we are there to help you, and we want you to do the best that you can while at the competition. So when you approach us or you go to the question box, um, don't forget we're there to help you. Um, and I think the best thing to do when you come to us is don't start with your conclusion. It's like, so in your mind, your conclusion is we need to have a replay. That's don't start off a
Yeah, it's kind of
conversation
a
like
negative way
that.
to start, right? So
Yeah, don't start your conversation off with a conclusion. Say, I have a question about the last match. Oh, sure. What is it? XYZ happened, and I think this was called. I don't know why that was called.
hmm.
And a lot of times it's, as a head referee, I don't see everything. And and then so what I'll do is like, well, the interpretation rule is this. So, like for example, last year's Steamworks game, uh, uh, contacting someone in the corner. Okay, here's a little inside to my head. I don't remember every year's games because I try to forget them every year because I need to. So I know I need to learn new rules every single year. So it's really hard for me to remember things from years past because I consciously say, kind of purge it from my brain so I can learn some new stuff.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So if you want to remind me what that corner area was where they loaded gears was a protected area. And so, but your bumpers had to be inside of it, or your opponent's bumpers had to be inside that area
Sure, yeah.
in order for that call to be. And so a lot of people would say, "Hey, our opponent contacted us in that corner. Why didn't you call a foul?" And it was basically, "Well, your bumpers never entered in that protected zone, or their bumpers never entered, so that's why it was a no call." But 90% of the time, so you don't remember that exact situation. You go,
Yeah.
so just explain to us what you saw, and then I'll go, okay, well, the rules say this. Maybe the referee in that corner didn't see the bumpers enter into the corner because we want to be sure when we make a call. If I tell referees, if you think something happened, it didn't happen.
Yes.
You need to know it happened
Yep.
in order for you to call.
Well, they have video replay evidence showing that.
Oh,
So how do you feel about
there's
that?
there's 80 plus matches just in qualifications. If there was a video replay, we'd be there until like Monday, Tuesday. We'd be there forever.
Yeah, and we won't go down too far down the interview rabbit hole on that either. But
Exactly.
so I mean, what about I've seen people bring the rule book with them, that sort of thing like that. So like, how do you feel about that? Like they're like, okay, you said this, but here's the rule book. Here's the rule that says this. Read the rule, sort of thing.
Uh, I that I wouldn't be predisposed to say, oh, that person, this they're not coming with a gracious intention
Sure.
by bringing the rule book. I would hope they're coming with the rule book with the best intentions. I have my iPad on me and have iBooks open, and I just do like a quick search, G something or G, or frame perimeter, and I enter that, and then I just find the rule that I need pretty quickly. Um, but I mean, that's not a bad approach, but the thing is, it's like the head ref didn't see it, and then I might talk to my referee and go, hey, the student says X, Y, Z happened. Is that what you saw? And they'll be like, I didn't see that. No, or well, what the student might not seen is that their bumpers weren't in the frame perimeter, or their bumpers weren't in the, didn't cross the line for the protective zone or something. So a lot of times that would happen.
So somebody in chat posted, and I think they're a referee, so I want to get your opinion on this. I'm not 100% sure, but the way they wrote in what person, they said it hurts us almost as much as it hurts y'all to issue cards and penalties. We always try, or at least we're supposed to try, to give teams the benefit of the doubt. Benefit of the doubt. Also, I love being in the middle of the action of the crowd. So I'm assuming they were a referee. So what, I think that's a big thing, right? Like you guys are there for the kids. You're there for
exactly.
Like, I'm going to get them with that red card. I mean, and hopefully I know that's not you, and hopefully it's not any other referee, right?
Yeah, and if that does become a problem, I think we have a good process in place to make sure those head refs and referees are say, hey, remember, we're there to be mentors. Mm-hmm. Do you think you're being a good mentor in that situation? And I think, and we're definitely addressing that kind of stuff in training now. And hopefully, I think referees will be doing a much better job being more consistent in accepting that mentorship role. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. That's why I was going to move on a couple other ones since we have to wrap up soon. So there was a question in regards to have you ever personally had to call First HQ for something, or what qualifies having to either contact like Aiden Brown, or who's the head referee of First, right?
Chief ref,
yeah, thank you, chief referee. So like, how does that work? Are calls pretty much just made for you? Because we've seen like Quebec this year, for example, the Montreal Regional Festival de Quebec. They had an issue with like the score went over the last second, and that was an FTA call to call First HQ for that. But like, how about as a referee, where does that line kind of get drawn?
Nothing really in my mind in terms of like having to call it First HQ comes to mind. I did have a situation back in 2005, 2006, or 2007, and it was like the first Kansas City regional ever. And so I was the head referee, and the lights went out on half the field. Like not the lights on the field, but the lights above the field.
Oh wow!
Went out. And you can still see, but I stopped gameplay. I said, no, we're not going to continue.
Just use vision and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, until this situation is fixed. And I got a lot of flack. People were saying, no, we need to play. We need to keep going. I'm like, this isn't fair. Half the field, it's not quite darkness, but there's a lot of things that depend on this. Mm-hmm. Luckily, Dean Kamen was here. and Dean was like, no, we don't play until that situation's fixed. I'm like...
Well, Dean said it, right?
Dean said it, so the issue was dropped. So we didn't start until the lights came back on. So I was like, that's one of my favorite stories of Dean's. I was like, oh, amazing. Thank goodness. And that was also the year that I had a contact issue problem, and I had to have UPS ship me some contacts, and they said the delivery failed, but there was a vice president of UPS there. I was like, hey, here's my tracking number. They said they couldn't deliver it. Could you please get it for me?
Like literally contacts for your eyes, you're saying?
Yeah. Oh, I was having issues with my contacts. And so I had my roommate, send me some fresh contacts. It just wasn't working. I don't know what was wrong with the contacts I had. But yeah, and then they gave me, and so the vice president of UPS went out and got, literally went out, hand delivered my contacts.
That's amazing. That's first class right there. So.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. But no, yeah, I really haven't had that chance. I have been hoping to have that chance in Shenzhen, where I could wake up Frank Merritt at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that's why I'm like, I don't know why you want to do that, but that would be perfect. I think Frank's up at 4 in the morning. That dude goes to bed at like 8 p.m. every night.
Yeah, no, actually, yeah, no, we haven't needed any of that yet, but
All right, a couple last questions, and we're going to kind of wrap up. And have you talked about a little about yourself? How many events do you do in a year typically? Because you mentioned that
Yeah,
the travel's gone down maybe a little bit, except for China now apparently. But like,
yeah.
I mean, so are you doing any other events before championships? And then you will be at Detroit or well in Houston.
No, just Houston, just
I
Houston.
was going to say we're staying together in Houston, so
Yeah.
yeah, but just Houston. So yeah, well, how many events do you typically do a year?
I try to do 2 to 3. Depends on how much vacation I have. And with these China trips, basically, I literally spend 2/3 of my vacation that I get
Wow.
allocated every year to do the China to go to China the last
That's
two
amazing.
years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I can only do those 2 events
Hmm.
and then go to Houston. Um, but if I wasn't doing China, I'd definitely be doing the San Francisco regional, and I'd help uh, Mark Edelman down in San Jose for Silicon Valley. I love helping him. He's an amazing head referee. He probably gave the best pre-event head referee presentation, and so I was like, we need to model this. So Mark does some amazing things. I would probably try to do another one. I think there's going to be one in Monterey sometime in the future. I don't know. So, but if they still want to keep on inviting me to China, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to say no, right? I mean it's such a
Yeah, I know.
fascinating culture and fascinating
I love
place
it.
to be. And lucky for you, unlike when I was there, it's not 110 degrees and humid every day during that.
March is a fantastic. If you want to visit
What
China,
is it
visit
like?
March. Huh?
Wait, what was the temperature like there?
Oh, it's spring. You know, it never
Well, I'm
got
from
below.
Wisconsin. It's like 30 here right now, so no,
It
I
never,
don't know
it
what
not,
nice California weather's like
it never
in
got, it never
March.
got below 40. I mean, it was cold for us Californians, I guess. But the folks from the east, where it was snowing all the time while they're in China, were like, yes, we're here in China, it's snowing back home. Um, so they were liking the much warmer temperatures, but it wasn't. I think the warmest day I think was 70, and the coldest day was like 50.
That's not
So
too
it was
bad.
it was nice. It was nice.
So, Frank, before we wrap up, I do want to read something in chat. And I don't know if you saw it here, but R. Wallace 931 said, before coming to Michigan, I worked with Frank at the St. Louis Regional for several years. He is my role model for all FRC referees. Vision,
Uh,
knowledge, empathy, enthusiasm, the whole package. I think personally, for how long I've known you, man, I think that explained. I think that's a beautiful way
yeah,
of saying that. So,
yeah. I mean, I said my dad was an engineer, and I gave a speech at the Shenzhen Regional this year. That's saying that 2 reasons I got involved in first was one was because my dad was an engineer, and if I think the world could use more people like my dad, solving problems, and if there were more. Uh, he was Frank. He was Frank Jr. I'm Frank the Third. So if there was more Frank
yep.
Juniors in the world, it would be a better place. Um, so that's reason one. And reason number two is I'm for the kids because I want to be a part of the journey to being an engineer, to working in some aspect of STEM, some sort of STEM job. Because it's so yeah, and I'm really psyched. My nephew, this was his first year on a robotics team in
Oh,
St.
super.
St. Charles
What team is
County.
he on?
It's a Francis Howell team in
Okay.
St. Charles. I forget the number. Um, someone found the flat. Someone found the video of me
Yeah,
dropping the flat.
I know. Yeah, go ahead and click on that and check that out later on. So, hey Frank, we do have to wrap up here. I want to thank you
You
from
bet.
the bottom of my heart to coming on and just giving us a candid, honest opinions on your experiences as being a referee. I think that's great, and hopefully it inspired others to want to take up the mantle of refereeing because
Yeah,
it's the toughest job in first as a volunteer is being brave enough to still want to inspire and have to call rules at the same time. So
it's been
before
tough fun.
yeah, before we take off, anything you want to leave us with before we end the show today?
Um, I would say if you want to be a referee, just know that you're there to be a mentor. You're not there to catch people. You're not there to make sure that these kids today are gonna they need to follow the rules. Why aren't they reading the first manual? It's like come on, they're in high school, man. They have different priorities than us who are married and have jobs. It's you know be patient with them.
Yeah.
If you I mean I have definitely slipped up sometimes where I get irritated and upset. I've made students cry, and I go, I feel so horrible. I'm like, oh no, and I'm
Yeah,
always
right.
like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's like I get so upset at myself when that happens. I'm like, oh, why was I such a jerk? Um, you have to be very self-reflective and not be afraid to be critical of yourself. And you need to listen to people and ask yourself, are what they telling you, is it reflected some way? What's the truth in it, and how is it reflected in the rules, and how is it reflected in how you were trained? And if you go through that and you go, ooh, I just messed up, then then you need to evaluate what do I need to go, what needs to happen going forward. Um, I mean, usually our mistakes are pretty small, but those big mistakes, you just have to, just look inside and go, all right, time to face the music on this one. I messed up. I threw my flag on the field. That should not happen.
Well, that's a good way to leave off with, Frankie. Thank you so much for taking the time once again. I can't wait to catch up with you in Houston.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great time there, and I know what an amazing job you do as a referee. If you guys haven't had a chance to work with Frank yet, or be on a field with him, if you're at Houston, make sure you stop by and just watch a couple of his matches and go say hi to Frank. He's a very personal guy. And,
Oh yeah, Sky.
yeah, if you haven't noticed already. So, but we do want to thank everybody for making the shows possible. If you want more First Robotics in your life and you like what we do, hey, go ahead and click that follow button right up there. Or if you really want to help us out and you want to directly support First Updates Now, either leave us some bits, tip, or subscribe, and you can do so for free through Twitch Prime. Don't forget, our subscribers get 5x chance in all giveaways, because we got 3 giveaways coming up in just a little bit here. Huge thank you to Frank once again for coming on the show. Thanks to all of our moderators in chat. We want to do more of these, guys. So if you have people that you want to talk about or want to see your positions, let us know. Give us some feedback. Feedback at firstupdatesnow.com. We got the FRC Top 25 coming up in just a few minutes. For now, this has been Tyler Rolls for First Updates Now. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one.